Well, hello there, everybody. Yeah, I'm a few minutes early, but going to be doing a show with Judith Kobawa. There we go. I know it. Night flight at 2 p.m. my time, so getting here a little bit early. How is everyone doing? So good to see everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Marvelous. I'm waiting to there. I am. Hey, Steiger, looking good, dude. Yeah, well, thank you very much. I can tell you, since I'm technically in the future and I'm looking at myself, wow, call me a space cowboy. That's all I got to say. So, as everybody gets in, thank you for tuning in to the channel, the vibe. Hey, Grace, happy birthday to you, darling. Grace is favor. So, may there be favor of grace in your birthday today, Grace. Much love, darling. And how are you doing? Go, go. Good to see you, Bonnie, Emperor Rec, Jackie J. Nothing missing, nothing broken. Yeah, speaking favor over us all. That's exactly it. Make it our reality. Nothing missing, nothing broken. That's peace. I mean, that is true wealth. I mean, the person that has perfect peace, money can't buy it, right? Many try, but doesn't work that way. Go, go. How's everything in Croatia, my good friend? Hey, Lauren, how are you? Good to see you. Saul, greetings. Goddess Sabina, how are you, my love? Good to see you. Lost in space. What's up, brother? Mary wins all the time, love. Yes. Love you, Mary. Um, Bonnie is checking in, so health and prosperity is better. Yeah, yeah. I think it's kind of like all the same thing. Um, I just really like Poco, and The Rose of Cimarron. It is such a great song. That group, um, Nothing to Hide, is probably one of the best acapella harmonizing that you can find. Those guys could, they nailed it. But anyway, I digress. So it's hump day. Nina has her thing over on her show, Hump Day. Check that out. Asking. Good to see you. Where's Deb? I don't know. Deb, where are you? She's hopefully listening. Cheryl, good to see you. Good day. It's been a minute since I've been here. It's only been a minute. Well, there you go. We start right out. Sometimes, as the roller coaster, builds up that anticipation and as you hit the peak and so like our magnetic field strength is doing. Yeah, we've passed the point of inflection. Uh wow. Means there's no going back. I mean, we've technically gone over the waterfall, and no matter how we want to try to stop space time, yeah. So no doubt the years coming will be ever more uh, odd, interesting. So kind of like the title of this episode, the events that are happening are they're being orchestrated. And how uncanny. I got to tell you, folks, even my title, when I put it out there this morning, suddenly there was another channel who used the exact same word, orchestrated. And I kid you not, I was out and listening to something and same thing. This somehow seems orchestrated. All the events unfolding. Now, it's interesting with this enlightened group. And even though that there are apparently some people out there that think this channel is really evil, what? But that's the perception. It's not. It's a place where knowledge is revered as the key to become wise. Wisdom, for myself, is the ability to use the knowledge in such a manner that you don't have the debate. And the fact is, we started this week out talking about being manipulated. This is all a form of mind control, serious mind control, mind you. And again, just the coincidences of things going on. I found it interesting, and I don't know how it ended up in my feed, but Dick Van Dyke. No, I grew up with Dick Van Dyke. Um, Great show, by the way. It had Rob Reiner was on there, the writers. It was great. Anyway, he put out a video. I think he's 96, 7, maybe right in that area. And you got to listen to a person who's been around a while. And there's a reason why he's around. There's a reason why he has that spark of eternal youth, even though his body is suffering the effects of the environment. But he came out and he said, he was giving a couple of things like this Supreme Court case with immunity. Now, I don't understand why either side would ever want to go there. Because the minute you go there, you're not going to like it, one side or the other, right? However, it's decided. And it's one of those things that I don't think was well calculated out. That I think they were throwing one of their bombs over to hopefully that would scare, but that's asinine thinking. But anyway, he goes and he says, and all of a sudden they drop this, and all of a sudden we have these protests, and everyone has a right to speak their mind and opinion, but when you start destroying property, nah, you've crossed a line. But anyway, I digress. And he says, and all the other events happening, he says, this seems orchestrated. It seems planned. And he said, we're being manipulated. We are. We're being so conditioned. I mean, it's interesting. I watch some of these people that expressing their opinions. And, the one person said, and it was interesting because there was a banner there of the LGBTQ plus, and it said, the guy said, well, you do realize that in Muslim countries, homosexuality isn't allowed. That's what happens. And the person said, what? What? Yeah. So it's all manipulation. And the more you become aware of it, the more bizarre it gets. I don't think that this channel is dark in any way. I think that we have probably some of the best enlightened minds. There's a reason why ghosting happens, and they do it all the time on this channel. It's fine. I really don't care. I kind of leave it to the universe. Those who want to hear, we're going to hear. And we discuss those things that are taboo. But if it's always taboo to you, and if you can't understand or, have a simple conversation on not even a related topic, what's up? But nevertheless, so that's my commentary. Hey, Nina, what's up, girl? Gilbert, what's up? Yeah, I agree with you, brother. Monkey Experiment, thank you. Brought to you by George Soros. You gotta love it. Trina, how are you, sweetie? Good to see you. Paul Joe and John Price. Seth, good to see you as well. So, yeah, we do. Yeah, we cover stuff that's taboo. I mean, but to shut your mind off, that's mind control. to even the remote possibility of an alternate thought than yours, wow. Talk about some prison walls, eh? Don't even want to go there. So we're going to get into this stuff. And by the way, it's interesting. So I was thinking last night, I said, isn't it odd? One of the things that I don't think is well appreciated are prophets and prophetesses. They exist, always have. Go back and look at human history. Every culture, every tribe, every societal structure had prophets and prophetesses, the feminine. I think I said that. Yeah. And I happen to believe that there are those who are tuned in to a consciousness that sees time not as a linear constant. Time in other dimensions, because time is a dimension, and it means if we can border other dimensions, then is time a constant, even though we may not understand time. So, I mean, in my time, when I was deeply involved in my former religion, um, there were a couple of prophets, and you judge the prophets. You judge them by what they say. And if you find a false prophet, well, you know, you have to deal with those because it can bring a lot of damage. And it has. The United States government plays the role of prophet. Did you know that? Our government is more occultish than what most people, I hear the argument all the time, people saying, well, the United States is a Christian nation. No, it's not. And then they'll revert back to the argument, well, but, most of the founders were. No, they weren't. Jefferson and Franklin were deists. They believed in a universal concept of God. I ain't no Christianity I know of, but no. And they bring up some of the most ridiculous things. Now, this government, hey, listen, George Washington was a 33rd degree Mason. The capstone put on the Washington Monument. I mean, come on, folks. That's stuff that dates way back. I mean, but it's interesting. So I don't know, again, I guess when the student is ready, there is now I'm seeing prophets beginning to speak. I knew Kenneth Copeland as a prophet. Uh, in some ways, he was right. In many ways, I think he was wrong as I look back. But within his construct, he would say that he was right. But I've met others. I've known prophetesses that, and in fact, I can tell you, more females have the gift of prophecy than males. However, being that we're in this prison, this mind control, the ultimate controller, it's a patriarchal, monotheistic false belief that has been accepted as truth, and it's not truth. And to kind of deal with this, I mean, how these events have been planned. We've had the opportunity here, on June 15th, 10 years on this platform, we have covered a lot. But we've discussed these things. And we have seen that there seems to be a coordinated, purposely driven, manipulated reality. I mean, if you were to ask the average person on the street, what do you see the future as? Do you see it as, sunshine and lollipops and, just groovy people walking around everywhere, not a care in the world? Man. We have been conditioned to accept war. And war is coming. The United States, in a sense, is already in a civil war. The bullets just haven't started flying. There are the prophets who now are saying that they see a war that was ignited by political ideology, but that war starts in 2025. Some are saying that 2025 is the year of death, of great sorrow, of intense existence. Now, it's interesting because, I grew up, Hilton Sutton was my mentor and teacher on the book of Revelation. And I know that book, know it well. And it's odd, it's odd that I'm sitting back going, okay, so I can see a non-secularist saying that this is either prophecy is most likely channeling. So you find out if a person's really good at a channeler or not by what really comes about. But nevertheless, you get this non-secular, there's some non-religious, into of what's happening. Now, you can look around today. It's all there. I mean, the old expression, a blind man could see this. It's there. All the elements are in place. Heard a prophecy that spoke, winter is coming. And this is a winter that will not abate. And they mean as well with the weather and also with the souls of humanity. Winter is death. Now, out of death comes renewal. We know that. I mean, if they can't use that to fear you anymore, it's like someone wrote, why would you give up your salvation? Why? Only a fool would do what you've done. Well, every wise man was once a fool as well. And if you call me a fool merely because I have the ability and the cognitive thought and maybe a small essence of free will to question that which I believe, well, then who's really the fool here? You or me? Because that's what happens. And it's not a sin. Someone said, why would you provoke God? Well, lady, if I have to be afraid of God, that ain't no God I want to be associated with. If fear is the conditioning of acceptance, I don't want any part of it. And I'm fully prepared to accept whatever consequences that comes with that. I've prepared a beach, beautiful place. You can stop by if you want on the other side. Some call it heaven, some call it hell. All I know, it's a pretty groovy place. But anyway, hey, Esley, the Club of Rome. There we go. The limits of growth. Hey, Danny, good to see you. Haven't seen you. Goddess Original. Hello. Good to see you. Gaia, what's up? Blazing River, everybody in here. So we're already there. But this war that's coming, see, right now, the Civil War that we're in, and it has ratcheted up, baby. I mean, it really has. I mean, I'm going, seriously? We've been down this road before and it never ends well. But nevertheless, we're in a war of political ideology. This war is a war for the minds. You hear it all the time. We have to capture the minds of the people. Yeah, I used to think that was pretty normal. Now I'm looking back going, whoa, wait. What did you just say? We have to capture their minds. Now, in a former religion that I was in, they use that you have to go out and reap and capture souls. Sounds like the fucking wraith to me. Just saying for a friend. But yeah, and boy, is it getting interesting. And you look at this, I don't know what the hell it is. Is it a consciousness? Hey, Gary, good to see you. I haven't seen you. And Susan, so many people I haven't seen in a while. Brandon, how are you, brother? Good to see you. I've been thinking about you often, speaking favor over every time I do. Um, but I don't know what this thing is. I've watched enough science fiction that you can really kind of fathom, fashion it in your mind, this mind controller. And I got a sense there's not just one. They compete. I think that in many cases they're in league with one another because humans are just plain stupid. I want to read and pull this up because I just want to read this to you. So give me a second as I go in here and pull this up. Do, 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 do. So I want to read this to you. I won't show it, but I'm going to read it. So get this. Well, as they would say, I was going to read it to you. It's like, gee, man. Um, but there is this guy, and let me see if I can pull it up because you never know. They change things, and I thought I actually had it saved. Do 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 do. Give me 1 second. Just go ahead and smoke them if you got them, and just here we go. So the Succession actor Brian Cox, right? Well, he's an atheist, and he tried to tell people about religion. And he said that it's the thing that has kept our species stupid. He said that, we fall back on this ridiculous thought that somehow or another, this magical being just simply snapped his fingers and there was a fully sentient, intelligent, living being. And he couldn't figure it out the first time. So then he had to go back and he had to rearrange the whole thing and get a woman, a female. And ever since then, the female has been the one downtrodden, the one removed, the one always left out. Because in a patriarchal religion, there's no room for the matriarchal. Can't have that. And so we think that this is somehow an actual living being, an actual being that, if you take it literally, is responsible for the death of billions of people. The very thing that it created, it destroys, it kills, without recourse of thought or even a second emotion in it. This is what he was writing about. And he says, and the stupidity is that you've got people in government that somehow live their lives by this so-called entity, and they are proud and they go, well, we have the right because we've been given it by God. And every one of those sons of bitches are liars. They lie. That means they don't worship this God they say they do. So the question is, what God and what religion are they? Because it sucks. And anyway, he goes on to say that, until humanity figures out There ain't no magical person coming out of the sky. No alien's going to come down and land in a spaceship and say, hey, humans, we got it all figured out. We're too fucking stupid to figure it out. We've been fucking stupid from the very day as we are right now. Our world is on the verge of World War III. They're ensuring that it happens. We have seen the moves of our government, the United States, taking steps deliberately to interrupt the flow of supplies. Go back and check me out on this. Go back and see how many food processing, how many other food producing plants, companies, they ain't here anymore. And yet we got a full-scale invasion taking place. The United States is being invaded. That's how stupid we are. But yet you got the right over here saying, well, God's going to come to our rescue. And you got the left over here and saying, well, your God is stupid because we have our God. And look at the fucking insanity. And we know they have plans to do us in. Just for example, let me just pull this up. Okay. So here is a white paper. This one is on the collapse of civilizations. And in this one particularly is looking at the collapse of 1177 BC. And get this, folks. This is really interesting. Let me pull it up here a little bit bigger so everyone can see it. There we go. The warriors entered the world scene and moved rapidly, leaving death and destruction in their wake. Modern scholars, refer to them collectively as the Sea Peoples. But the Egyptians, who recorded their attack on Egypt, never used that term, instead identifying them as separate groups working together. I think that's the Paliset, the Chagir, the Shalash, the Sardana, the Duana, the Washish, foreign-sounding names for foreign-looking people. We know little about them beyond what the Egyptians record tells us. We are not certain where the Sea Peoples originated, perhaps in Sicily, Sardinia, Italy. According to one scenario, perhaps in the Aegean or Western Anatolia, or possibly even Cyprus or Middle Eastern Mediterranean. No ancient site has ever been identified as their origin or departure point. We think of them as moving relentlessly from site to site, overrunning countries and kingdoms as they went. According to the Egyptian texts, they set up camps in Syria before proceeding down the coast of Canaan, including parts of Syria, Lebanon, and Israel, into the Nile Delta of Egypt. The year was 1177 BC. It was the 8th year of Pharaoh Ramses III's reign. According to the ancient Egyptians and to more recent archaeological evidence, some of the Sea Peoples came by land, others by sea. There was no uniforms, no polished outfits. Ancient images portray one group with feathered headdresses, while another faction sported skull caps. Still others had horned helmets or went bareheaded. Some had short pointed beards and dressed in short kilts, others bare-chested or with a tunic. Others had no facial hair and wore longer garments, almost like skirts. These observations suggest that the Sea Peoples comprised of diverse groups from different geographics and different cultures. Armed with sharp bronze swords, wooden spears with gleaming metal tips, and bows and arrows, they came on boats, wagons, ox carts, and chariots. Although I have taken 1177 BC as a pivotal date, we know that the invaders, and here's a good picture of them right here, one depiction of the Sea People, came in waves over a considerable period of time. Sometimes the warriors came alone, sometimes their families accompanied them. According to Ramses' inscriptions, no country was able to oppose this invading mass of humanity. Resistance was futile. The great powers of the day, the Hittites, the Mayacians, the Canaanites, and the Cryptites, and others, fell one by one. Some of the survivors fled the carnage, others huddled in the ruins of their once proud cities, still others joined the invaders, swelling their ranks and adding to the apparent complexities of the mob of invaders. Each group of the Sea Peoples was on the move, each apparently motivated by individual reasons. Perhaps it was the desire for spoils or slaves that spurred some. Others may have been compelled by population pressure to migrate eastward from their own lands in the west. On the walls of his mortuary temple in the Mediat Hubal in the Valley of the Kings, Ramses said concisely, "The foreign countries made a conspiracy in their islands. All at once the lands were removed and scattered into the fray. No land could stand before their arms. Of the Kedite, the Od, the Kermish, the Arzawa, and the Alaisha, on being cut off at one time. A camp was set up in one place in Amura. They desolated its people, and its land was like that which had never come into being. They were coming forward towards Egypt, with the flame was prepared before them. Their confederation was of the Pieleset, the Jair, the Shikalash, the Danua, and the Washiash lands united. They laid their hands upon the lands as far as the circuit of the earth, their hearts confident and trusting." Now, the point was that these people came in. And there's one other interesting thing. The archaeologist that actually discovered Abraham's Ur of the Chaldees was also the guy that really discovered who these Sea Peoples was. And what the paper went on to speak about was that it completely changed the whole complexity of the geopolitical scene. What's happening here in Europe, the United States, is that we're seeing the largest migration of people ever. And unfortunately, it doesn't end well. Why? You have limited resources. Now, when you begin to limit the resources, we know what happens. If you increase the population with limited food supplies, you bring in hunger. Something we haven't experienced here in the United States. Actually, that's not true. Because during the Dust Bowl, what we call the Great First Depression, we're still in the Second Depression and it's about to get worse. But anyway, there was food shortages. People were poor. There was no safety net. And when the land stopped producing, and the land today has far more in multitude of people living on it than it did back in the 20s and the 30s of the 20th century. Today, we would not have the restraint that we did as a society. So going on with this, as we continue to push forward, we've all know this document. This was the document of NASA, the future strategic issues in the future. Now, this document was produced in July of 2001. So we have about 23 years, imagine almost a quarter century now coming up. And if you remember this one, they actually predicted a lot about what is happening today. I thought it was real interesting, beam weapons. So here is something that's really interesting. We're seeing it deployed in other parts of the world, and now we're getting to see here, but apparently there is a sonic weapon that apparently our government has, and maybe others. The sonic weapon can be activated through the current communication grid, the system we have today. This gets really weird. And this sonic weapon, by its nature, If you get hit by it, you're going to have severe hearing loss, potential vision loss, uh, damage within the brain itself. Yeah. Uh, That's some crazy stuff going on. But anyway, and if you don't have this document, I'll be more than happy to see it, but you can go back. It's in one of it. But all of this, it's amazing how much of what this document had to say. And I mean, you've got a who's who list who was involved in putting this document together. Um, how much of this has come to pass? Now, I look back on this and I'm going, holy crap. This is actually a form of mind control. Because what you're reading in here is basically was a workshop based on what the current data they had, and they're very clear how they compiled this data and the available data they had back in 2001. And they put this together, extrapolating, connecting the dots, so to speak, in this huge multi organizational chart of how all of this was playing. And you read this thing out and you're going, it's here. It's here. I mean, global warming, pollution, deforestation, huge public work. The thing that we're seeing now is that part of this prediction is starting in 2025 into 2026, you're going to see the cities of the United States in flames. Literal guerrilla warfare taking place in cities like New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Chicago, St. Louis, Denver. I mean, they're already taking that. It's already here. But now you're bringing a foreign element in. And I can tell you, those boys, they don't play fair. In fact, it was just released today by I think it was Department of Homeland Security. We're seeing a flood of Chinese military-age men flooding the U.S. borders. What's that about? Well, you can almost read in this. And it goes on. The human genome, design and repair, mind children. I read that and I went, holy crap. But yeah. And it's interesting as well. In this particular book, and it's a book, but this is the final warning. And this is the history of the New World Order. The people think that the New World Order is some kind of new organization. Oh, man, they've been at this for a long time. According to this author, Dr. Alan Rivera, for over 200 years, they have controlled the destiny of the United States, and now they are poised for the establishment of a one-world government. So that's the problem I have with religion. No matter what religion you look at, it is in its essence communism. It is complete socialism. It is the dominance of that single thought that everyone then lives their lives under. That ain't cool. I don't like that in government. I don't like that in religion. Get this. This is what George Bush said. What is at stake is more than a small country. It is a big idea. Mind control, a new world order. Remember when he gave this speech? I do. Where diverse nations are drawn together in a common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind. Can anyone please tell me what the universal aspirations of mankind are? They use big fancy words, but they don't define them. Now, you and I could sit here and we can, speculate and conjugate and, debate as to what the universal aspirations of mankind is. Well, he goes on to say peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Well, how's that working out for us? Let's see. Peace and security. Do you have that today? No. No, these are the same cats. Right, run into them. Freedom? Huh? United States is exactly where Nazi Germany was. Well, they weren't even Nazi Germany. I guess that was the beginning of it right there in the 1920s. We are in exact the same bootstep. Yeah. Um, Says the final warning reflects an amazing digest of monumental resources, material involving multitude of viewpoints. And I just want to show you how extensive it gets. Gets into all these different layers. I have another book on this one that brings it out in a little bit, I think it articulates it in a little different way. This is the Illuminati formula used to create an undetectable, total mind-controlled slave. This is by Cisco Wheeler and Fritz Springmeier. This one I found really interesting. So the 12 major sciences of monarch mind control are as follows. The selection and preparation of the victim. You see, we've all been, in essence, selected. And if you don't believe that, if any of you have ever done marketing, it was my career for, it's how I became into the C-level was marketing, sales. I understood technology, but sales and marketing, man, that's really, as I look back now, we were magicians. I mean, you think about going out there, you analyze a market, you create a plan, a strategy, how to go out there to convert that to make it become reality. Anyway, you have genetics and dissociative abilities, B, availability, C, physical and mental requirements. Isn't it odd that we're seeing the dumbing down? In universities now, they have reduced their standards in the area of law, medical, even physics. We're finding now that more PhDs have been plagiarized in their making than ever before. But now we heard that the University of Texas is going to use an AI program to sift through the applications. Scary shit. And exactly what we saw in that NASA document is exactly what they said would be happening. You have governments, institutions, corporations turning over what was at one time a human function only. Now a machine is doing it, thus eliminating and obsoleting the human. They say that the reason for this invasion is to replenish the workforce. But the problem is with the workforce is that you've got so many Americans going, hey, we'd like to have that job too. All part of the plan. List of organizations carrying out the programming. 4 foundational steps for programming. F, step 1, spiritual requirements, moonchild ceremonies, traumatization in vitro. G, step 2, trauma by premature birth. Step 3, love bombing, love bonding. Step 4, severing the core of the mind. J, further considerations. And then it gets into the traumatization and the torture of the victim. This is some deep stuff. The use of drugs, a list of drugs used, a brief history of drugs. Many people would say that we're entering a time unlike any other time because we now have the widespread proliferation of, particularly in this case, cannabis, tetrahydrochloride, THC. Now, depending on what your point of view is, you can say, well, that's a freedom of choice. That's cool. But then again, much like alcohol has done severe damage, but alcohol has been with us. There has just never been the wide adoption of use. Even yesterday, the Biden administration has now reduced marijuana from a class 1 now to a class C, 4th level, 4th grade. It's on the level of Tylenol, tramadol, the same class, and not even tramadol, it's even lower than that. But all of this is going to have an effect. The use of hypnosis. I appreciate Urantia Papers 101 wrote, if you go back and look at Mundy's comments, did a perfect, this is what it is. We're all hypnotized. My wife and I, again, were talking about it last night. I said, it's inevitable. And we're not smart enough to figure out exactly what is the optic nerve really being influenced by, other than the fact of association of reasoning, that we can look at words and then we can form cohesiveness of thought. How to program with hypnosis, how to boost creativity of victims with hypnosis, keeping the mind disassociative, keeping the mind in a programming state. That's the problem with the smartphone. They've got us. We're screwed. I very seldom use my phone. Many of you text me, you know that. I read them later, but I just, I do this show and, I'll be doing another one here with Judith and going to have Ryder on and some other people. But the fact is that how do you escape it? Hypnotic triggers and cues. Boy, are we seeing this. Have you seen it lately? It seems like certain people, they have these triggers. Now, it doesn't affect everybody, but it seems to affect, and there's different triggers. And you look at some of this stuff, I've seen it myself. Road rage. You got now people using cars as instruments of death. Hypnosis and programs and other uses. Get this one. The skill of lying. Look at what happened. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is a liar, but so is Biden. So are all of them. But to lie purposely with masterful skill, a form of mind control. The use of fiction. That's all Biden talks about. All of his stories are made up. But boy, yeah. The use of lies externally, including covers and fronts. The use of internal deceptions, including the art of hiding things in a system. You might want to probably go over this one. It is one of these. I want to get into this one. Let's see. I think they get into so many of them, and you read this and you're going, how do we win? Seriously. All right, spiritual control techniques, possession, trances, etc. You see, I learned this decades ago. There are many government bureaus, agencies, whatever you want to call them. They purposely recruit people in the occult. You'll never read about it. You'll never see it. It's there. It's hidden into their budgets, but they do. The Federal Reserve is open about it. I will say this. They understand that when there is heightened activity on the sun, it has a direct correlation and effect on markets. They understand that the human mind and how it's moved, and these are all factored in. But you need people, you need astrologers, numerologists. You need these people that have the master of this pseudoscience, they call it, but we happen to know there's probably more real than the science we think is real. How the Monarch program miniaturizes what is done on a large scale. Dehumanization. Now, that's the one thing that's being done to us on a major scale. We're all being programmed to become dehumanized, to violence, to the breaking of laws. I mean, and it just goes on and on. Why? Mind control. Fear. Fear is a huge one on the list. There are so many channels on these platforms that fear is their clickbait. Fear is what they put out there, but they'll put it in the guise of being metaphysically, it's like, oh, come on, man. The use of guilt, shame, ridicule, and anger, teaching that the master is God. I'm happy to say I get more love mail and supportive email than I do on the hate, but man, I mean, there's some people that said that I should have had my head chopped off. I shouldn't be allowed to. But you know what? The thing about it is, there's so many other channels now that are in the same vein. Portals, focal points, vows, taking an oath, the use of demon possession, layering in, etc., the use of angels and altars, the misuse of scripture, theta programming. We could do a whole freaking show. We just might. We'll probably get in. In fact, we will. I'm looking at the time. We'll do this, well, depending tomorrow, hopefully. But yeah, this one I think would be really interesting to read exactly what the playbook is looking like. And then I'm thinking, all right, so if they know we got the playbook, did they change the book? Or are they just saying it doesn't matter? So few of them are going to read it, it really doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they read it to the freaking world. Doesn't matter. We already got them. They got us. I would dare say, if we were to be honest, how many boxes would you have to check off? I've got this sense it's going to be more than one. I could be wrong. Just saying. Internal controls, teaching occult philosophies and ideologies. Internal computers, internal hierarchies. Why would they include the occult philosophies? I told someone once, they said, what kind of philosopher are you? And I said, I guess if you were to get literal, I said, for the work I've done, I said, I'd probably be an occult philosopher. And that person looked at me and, what exactly is an occult philosopher? And I said, and the person actually said this, they said, so tell me something new that an occult philosopher has to speak about that I don't already know. And I looked at the person right into their eyes and I said, you're already dead. You've been dead since the minute you got here. You're dead right now. You think that you have memories, that these are your memories. You think that this is a place of where life abounds. Everything that you do depends on another person's death. You have to consume something that died. You yourself are dying. And he just looked at me and he said, I'll be damned. You taught me something I had never heard before. So anyway, moving right on along. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to get into this one because apparently a lot of us have been programmed from the monarch type trauma-based mind control. This book is written to destroy trauma-based mind control before it destroys the human race. It's time for this horrendous secret to end. It is also written as part of God's end-time work to propel people of faith to the higher calling that is prophesied of the body, but cannot be attained without men of faith understanding these things. Now, I don't know to which God. It reads to me like it's talking about the Christian God. But the problem is with the Christian God, we don't know where that God comes from. Oh, I had someone write me and say, how dare you? You're twisting scripture. And I wrote back, I said, the hell I am. Your guy who wrote your New Testament, he's the one who wrote it. He was a Jew. He said he was a Hebrew. I think he actually said in the Bible that he was a Jew of the Jews. Been trained. Rabbi. Highest level of training. Why? It's because his family was filthy rich. But anyway, and I said, he's the one that went into Ephesus. I didn't. He's the one who stood up and with a synagogue that he was looking at 50 yards away, who said that, he said, I saw this place, where you held out that this is dedicated to the God that has no name. He says, that's the God I represent. Well, if he's got no name, then who the hell is Yahweh? Who the hell is Jehovah? Anyway. Okay, so moving on along. And these are some of the books I was going to cut. And this is the Illuminati formula used to create an undetectable mind control slave. And this one is another interesting. So, yeah, we're going to pick up on that though tomorrow. I think that would be interesting. I mean, how do you know that you're not? I mean, you think about it. How do we know if we haven't been hypnotized? How do we know that we're not being manipulated by other vices in our lives? You know, they say that in Russia, and if I understand this correct, Putin, and I don't know if it was him directly, but they don't allow microwave ovens in people's homes. It's interesting here in the United States. We are the last country that puts poison, caustic, toxic poison in our drinking water. We coat our teeth with it, fluoride. I mean, I haven't, it's taken over, I guess now 8 years. Haven't used fluoride toothpaste. Don't allow the dentist to ever put that crap on me. And I got to say, I guess you could potentially decalcify the pineal gland. But anyway, we're only one of the few countries, and maybe the only countries that allow red dye number 4, yellow dye number 4, and red dye. There's another one. I forget which number of them. Been proven not to do the human body any good. Yeah. We're in a nation that's in an epidemic of diabetes. It wasn't when I was growing up. I never knew anyone who was diabetic. Now it is the number one thing in prescription drugs. And we can pretty well trace it back to the food that we're feeding our kids. But now food has become so expensive that you're finding more and more people relying on the heavily processed foods. Why? Because it's cheap. It has very little nutritional value actually in it. But it tears the pancreas up. Yeah. It's just a fact. It's crazy. I always say, well, it's just the way it is. No, we're supposed to be intelligent people. All right. Plants vibrate at a higher frequency. Bonnie, I agree with that. Kai, which was that? Actually, it's the fluoride in beer makes my. Do they? They don't put fluoride in beer, do they? No. I mean, Lost in Space, well, you probably have some really good things. I like that. Yeah. Raises chickens for meat. Yeah. Uh, Mary Wins, you're right. Many people have, conspiracy theories. It's amazing how many conspiracy theories actually become actual truth. I was like, oh, well, I can't say that. And I know something else is going on. So got some people that, they know shit that I don't know. But so something is being planned, or they know something. I could give you the name of a couple of these political figures, but do you know that we have those, I guess, who are in the know making preparations to seek political asylum in certain countries? Why would a high-ranking political figure need to contemplate political asylum? What do they know that we don't know? And when I heard that, I said, you got to be kidding me. No. Hey, Nature's Intentions, what's up? Loretta, good to see y'all. Boy, I had so many. Hey, F Kitty, what's up? Um, so anyway, that's my thoughts for today. It's true. We're going to get into that part, I think, on that monarch mind control, because I find it very interesting how they're pushing, and who would have thought? But you have to admit, something may sound a little weird. I mean, I look in my shelves and I've bought books, and I know many of them are out of print now, but I couldn't imagine 30 years ago the proliferation of occult material. Is it somehow connected? I don't know. But I do find it curious. And boy, does it open up new channels of thought, doesn't it? Someone wrote, Steiger, you go where angels dare to tread. And I went, what can I say? They're not me. Well, why do they always want to change us? Why is it they always speak of individuality, but if you begin to express individuality, then you're no longer norm? And that then puts you on the outside looking in. I got this funny sense that, they're trying to really wreck us up. I mean, it seems like they're not looking after our best interest. All right, everyone. Thank you all. Y'all are beautiful people. Love your minds. Love your mind, man. Woman, yeah, I love it a lot. Gaia says, our power that most don't know they have. I think that's true, Gaia. We do exercise a lot of that here. I mean, Mary Wynn says funeral homes are owned by elite. Do you know that there's only like 2 families who own the death business? And don't you try to come in. If you're an independent, you'll be bought up. The dying business is very, very profitable. You're absolutely right. Okay, thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. Gilbert, I think this whole trip is bizarre. It is. Can I have another hit, please? I'm not quite high enough yet, Gilbert. I got to get up there yet, a little bit higher. Isn't that what Sly Stone said? I want to take you higher. All right, everybody. Check out. I'm thinking that Judith's program is going to be live over at Night Flight Radio. I believe that's her channel. So check it out over there, folks. And until we meet again, much love to you, and keep it real. They don't want to make it real, right?